I just saved you. Your joke is a bit inappropriate. The city burning brightly with corpses lining the streets. Ares failed to react for a moment, unable to comprehend how the encampment had turned into this earthly hell. Suddenly, Ares was surrounded by numerous indistinct exotic species. Those exotic species roared and charged at him. Ares hadn't figured out what was going on yet when he was surrounded by the exotic species. He was torn apart and then disappeared in a blaze of fire. I don't know how long has passed. Ares suddenly heard someone speaking. He forced himself to open his eyes and saw that the young man from before was not dead. It was just a dream. Fortunately, it was only a dream. However, after his fatal strike on the exotic species, he fainted. He didn't remember anything. He realized that this exotic species shouldn't be wasted. He reached out and touched the shell of the exotic species. He activated the Shadow Devourer. In an instant, he completely absorbed the energy of the exotic species. The young man, however, seemed to be turning a blind eye. He kept asking, "Are you okay? Why aren't you talking?" Ares quickly responded, I'm here. When he looked at the young man, he saw that only 10% of his HP bar remained. The situation looked grim. 10%, according to the system's classification, would be considered critically injured. Emergency and professional rescue could still give him a chance to survive. The young man relaxed when he saw Ares was unharmed. He patted Ares on the shoulder and asked him to help him sit against the wall. After sitting down, both of them breathed a sigh of relief. The young man suddenly spoke. Brother, you are not from the Night Guard Bureau, are you? Ares was stunned. Did he not recognize him? They lived in the same building, seeing each other frequently. Did he truly have no impression at all? Upon closer inspection, he noticed that the young man's pupils were dilated, indicating that he couldn't see anything. So he said, No. The young man suddenly laughed when he heard this. I knew it, he said. It's such a hassle to capture a Stage 1 exotic species. You must not be from our Night Guard Bureau. The black line on Ares' head directly dropped down. He thought, You really don't know how to chat. I can't believe I just saved you. Young man almost finished laughing and said, I was just kidding. You're actually pretty amazing. Being able to kill exotic species with a soy sauce bottle, you're truly unparalleled. He suddenly started coughing violently while smiling, which made Ares feel a bit panicked. Are you okay? He asked. He thought to himself, this person really has a good attitude. Even in this state, he can still laugh. The young man asked again, Little brother, based on your voice, how old are you? Ares replied, I am a sophomore at Northern Capital Sentinel Academy. Ares did not say more. 0 to 0. It's better to keep my information vague for now. Who knows, the young man suddenly became interested. Wow, what a coincidence. You are still my junior. Which major are you in, liberal arts or martial arts? Ares felt a headache coming on. He thought, Please stop asking, take a break. You are still bleeding. The young man couldn't see Ares' painful expression at this moment. Instead, he kept muttering to himself. You should be in martial arts. Liberal arts probably can't handle Stage 1. Suddenly, the young man reached out his hand and asked, Little brother, do you have a cigarette? Ares scratched his head. I only have a snake. The young man was taken aback. Biscuit? That works too. Give me one. Ares took out a biscuit and broke it into 2 pieces. He gave half of it to the young man. The young man was speechless for a moment and said, Why are you so stingy? You only gave me half a biscuit. Ares pointed to the biscuit box that fell not far away on the ground. There was originally a box, but it broke during the fight. Ares said, If you want me to crawl over and pick some up for you. The young man, with a look of disgust, replied, Get lost, eat it yourself. So each of them held half a biscuit without chewing. They sat against the wall and began to rest. Bring someone here. Who will give me a knife? What's wrong with this person? Why is it never ending? Aries and Young Man leaned against the wall, chatting idly. Young Man was surprised to hear that it was Aries' first time killing an exotic species. He couldn't help but feel a bit envious of Aries. He was born to be a good fighter. Aries is not like him, with poorer aptitude and weaker willpower. Otherwise, he wouldn't even be able to hold a clerical position. Even if he took drugs like Distant Stare, he wouldn't be able to beat a Stage 1 exotic species. Aries finds it difficult to catch his breath, making it hard for me to advise him to conserve energy and wait for rescue. In contrast, Young Man just waves his hand nonchalantly, saying, "It's okay. I just want someone to talk to me." Then he raised his hand and said, "I work in a clerical position like this. My willpower is like cotton. No matter how much there is, it can only be fluff. Pollution strikes. How can I resist?" Aries heard this and asked, "Do you regret it? You could have chosen a normal liberal arts direction, and as a clerical position staff, why did you come to the shadow lair alone?" The young man immediately clenched his fists tightly and growled lowly, "I do regret indeed. I have a clerical position. The days when I train new people are not good. I'm afraid there's something wrong with my brain. I rush in when my head gets hot. Now I can't get out." He stopped speaking and started coughing violently. Aries quickly stepped forward to console him, saying, "I have to persuade you. This guy has low HP himself. He might die again later." The young man waved his hand and pointed to the two kids who had passed out nearby, saying, "Don't worry. The rescue signal has been sent out. They will be here soon." Aries saw the wristband that the kid was using to send a distress signal and nodded in relief. Aries got up to go take a look but was stopped by the young man. "Don't wander around. You might encounter exotic species. Your skills are just SOSO, not even enough for others to notice. Sit down and chat with me for a while." Aries was speechless. "You are more tormenting than exotic species. I really want to escape, but I can't." So he could only sit down helplessly again, listening to the big brother continue talking about his glorious past. But Aries really couldn't express his suffering. He wished he could deafen himself. At this moment, the young man suddenly said, "By the way, if you go to the academy, please help me apologize to the director of the Martial Arts Academy with an extraordinary major. Tell him that I have disappointed his initial expectations. I can't even defeat the Stage 1 exotic species. Please also help me thank the Deputy Director of Liberal Arts and thank her for her guidance. Also, advise her not to be so cringy in class anymore. Things like passing on the torch and humanity will prevail are just embarrassing." Aries forced a smile, saying, "Could you wait for me to get a notebook, or tell them yourself after you recover? I can't remember all this if you say so much." Upon hearing this, young man was stunned. Then he said somewhat dispiritedly, "These words have been weighing on my heart for a long time. I just wanted to find someone to talk to." Then he muttered, "Northern Capital Sentinel Academy. How good it would be if I could go back to those days." He then extended his hand and said, "2 more crackers, spicy ones." Aries responded speechlessly, "Your taste is quite heavy. There's nowhere in the world that makes spicy crackers for you." The young man said somewhat regretfully, "That's true. Let's forget it." Just then, not far away, there was a spatial fluctuation, and several small rifts began to appear. The young man turned around as if sensing something and said, "It looks like the people from the Night Guard Bureau are coming over." Aries suddenly felt as if he had been granted amnesty. At last, finally, he was about to be free. The pain of being forced to chat was about to end. Night Guard Bureau gazed at the stars, guarding the earth. Seeing the Night Guard Bureau was approaching, Aries naturally could not stay any longer. So he picked up his things and turned to leave. The young man was somewhat surprised. "Aren't you coming with me?" Aries pouted. "No, I'll just go by myself." The young man understood the reason after a moment of contemplation. He smiled and said, "Go ahead. Have a safe journey. Aries felt something was off, but he didn't think too much about it. He nodded and said, "All right, then I'll leave. Take care." He turned his head and began to walk towards the other side. Aries gradually walked away. The young man sitting against the wall gradually fell silent. His breath also began to weaken. As Aries activated Shadow Eyes, rifts surrounded him. He is about to return to the original world. Aries looked back at the young man with some reluctance. Just then, the rescuers from the Night Guard Bureau arrived near the young man. Several people hurried to inspect the area. The person in charge turned around and shook his head slowly. Just as Aries was still puzzled by what the head shake meant. The HP bar on young man's head suddenly jumped, deducting 1% out of nowhere. Then he started losing HP frantically, dropping by half in just a few seconds. Aries was stunned. How could this happen? With current medical technology, can 10% of HP still be saved? But how did he inexplicably start losing HP? At this moment, Aries saw several rescue personnel stand up. They saluted the young man together. And at this moment, the HP bar of that young man also dropped to 0. The young man's body seemed to shatter like broken porcelain, turning into pieces of fragments gleaming with light, gradually disappearing. Aries was greatly shaken in his heart, and was about to rush over. But at this moment, Shadow Eyes had also completed its activation. It instantly brought Aries back to the original world. Aries appeared out of thin air. People on the street looked at Aries in confusion. What's wrong with this person? They shouted and screamed on the street. His clothes were all blood-stained. Is this some kind of performance art? And at this moment, Aries was also incredibly lost and sad. Although that person was a bit talkative, he was indeed a good person. On the screens on the street, the promotional staff of the Night Guard Bureau are still preaching. As an extraordinary, please remember, even in the final moment, do not give up. When you realize your chances of survival are low, please take compound number 3, distant stare, burn your life, and guard the world. Remember the sacrifices, forge ahead with courage. We will eliminate all exotic species, stand on the earth, gaze at the stars, patrol the night on behalf of the heavens, and look towards the future. Based on the mortal world transcending the mortal world. A mortal body performing extraordinary deeds. We are all watching from afar. We are the Night Guard Bureau. And at this moment, Aries has already returned to the apartment. He in the elevator has not realized it yet. Did that person die just like that? He was clearly chatting and laughing just a moment ago. Aries now realizes that all he wanted before he died was to find someone to talk to and share his heart with, without flowers or applause. He simply passed away quietly alone. Aries, feeling a bit lost and numb, took out the key, opened the door, and walked into the room. He thought to himself, no matter how ordinary, he would remember him. He wouldn't actually believe my nonsense, would he? This is making me feel guilty. Aries, covered in injuries, returned home. He was utterly exhausted. He just wants to eat something, and then quickly wash up and go to bed. At this moment, Aries turned his head and saw his reflection in the mirror. Surprisingly, there was still more than half of the HP bar on his head. He was having trouble even walking now. He thought there was less than 20 left. He then thought of that sacrificed young man, still chatting and laughing with only 10% of HP left. He realized that his willpower still needed training, otherwise, all the physical exercise would be in vain. Just as Aries took out the ham sausages and instant noodles, a voice came from behind him. I asked you to buy the eggs. This sound startled Aries. He dropped his dinner. When he turned around, he saw Lucia lying on the back of the sofa, looking at him. She complained, "Your phone is unreachable, couldn't find you. If I didn't know any better, I would think you ran off to the shadow lair. How come when I asked you to buy eggs, you went to the chicken coop to get them?" Aries dared not turn around to face Lucia, fearing that she would see the injuries on his body and react unpredictably. He could only say, It's not New Year's yet. You know how long the lines are at the supermarket. Aries suddenly realized. Wait a minute. Lucia turned over the sofa and pouted. You order takeout every day and never cook. Lawson asked me to take care of you, so he gave me the key. She came to Aries' side as she spoke. Looking him up and down, she asked in confusion. It's actually you. What's going on with your appearance? It looks like you've been beaten up. Aries suddenly broke out in a cold sweat. He stuttered a bit and said, It's nothing, it's nothing. It's late. You should go back and rest early. Otherwise, Uncle Lou will misunderstand again. Lucia became even more suspicious this time. You are acting strange. If you're worried about misunderstanding, then explain it to me, she said before reaching out to grab Aries. Aries refused to budge, vowing not to turn around no matter what she said. Lucia's grip tore a hole in the sleeve with a sharp sound, causing Aries to unconsciously turn around. Lucia was shocked to see this scene. How did you get hurt like this? Aries quickly tried to break free, but Lucia refused to let go. She grasped tightly with both hands and refused to let go. Aries can only make up stories on the spot. When I came back, I ran into a robbery. I stepped in to handle it. Don't be fooled by my appearance. I beat up the guy pretty badly. Later, the police arrived, and they almost didn't recognize the person who got beaten up. Speaking of which, Aries became even more animated in his gestures. Look at my uppercut, left hook, right hook combo. I hit that guy so hard even his own mother wouldn't recognize him. Just as Aries was about to continue his lies, Lucia suddenly reached out and gently touched the scars on Aries' face. At this moment, her eyes were filled with sadness and compassion. She seemed like she was about to cry. Aries was a little confused for a moment, then thought carefully. Wait, she wouldn't actually believe my nonsense, would she? How did you, a big man, end up crying like this? Seeing Lucia about to cry, Aries felt a little flustered for a moment. Lucia gently caressed Aries' wound and asked with some concern, How is it? Does it still hurt? Aries quickly responded, No, it doesn't hurt. You should go back to sleep now. Lucia didn't know what she was thinking. Suddenly, her face turned red. I want to tell Lawson about the fight you had at night with someone. Aries was scared on the spot. If Lawson finds out, he will be furious. He grabbed Lucia's hand and said, You shouldn't. That wasn't fighting, it was just chivalry. Please go back. Lucia's stubbornness also arose. I won't do it. Aries turned his eyes and sat down on the ground with a groan. Oh, I can't do it anymore. He felt weak all over. Lucia thought he was in pain and quickly asked, Are you okay? After carefully examining him, Lucia came to a conclusion. Aries, you need to go to the hospital for your injury. Aries naturally refused, shaking his head vigorously. No need for that trouble. I have plenty of medicine at home. They are all brought back by Lawson from the Night Guard Bureau. It's really effective. Lucia narrowed her eyes, sensing that something was amiss. All right, so you want me to treat you, huh? Aries could only force a smile. Thank you, doctor. However, after less than 2 minutes, Aries regretted it because Lucia applied the medicine with considerable force, claiming that applying some pressure would help with absorption. In the end, he was so frustrated that he shouted, Why did you wrap me up like a mummy with that medicine? Isn't it too exaggerated? Lucia, seeing him full of energy, knew that he was fine. She went up and gave him a pat. Will you still show off next time? Aries grimaced in pain. No, I won't join in the fun next time for sure. Lucia moved in closer. Swear to me. Aries firmly refused. I won't. Lucia got angry and directly beat Aries down on the couch. Are you fooling me? Aries could only beg for mercy repeatedly. It is human nature to join in the fun. At worst, I'll just watch and not get involved. Lucia landed 2 punches again. Say it again. Aries completely surrendered. I'll just watch and not do anything. What's wrong with that? Lucia clapped her hands. That's more like it. I'm leaving, she said, and started walking away. Aries had nothing to say in response. You're leaving already? Why don't you stay for the night? My bed is big. Lucia made a funny face. Disgusting. After saying that, she closed the door and left. And Aries lay on the sofa, staring into space. The young men asked him to help pass a message to the people at the Northern Capital Sentinel Academy. He might pay a visit one day. Suddenly, Aries was stunned and sat up straight. This is not right. He hasn't told me his name yet. Aries was completely stunned. Please subscribe, all viewers. Aries, who had nothing to do at the moment, once again opened the system's big wheel. This time, after it spun, it stopped at extraordinary. Then it displayed detailed information about the exotic species he had killed, recorded in the system. Aries now understands. So killing exotic species will be recorded in the system manual. But he just doesn't know whether killing is enough, or if he needs to absorb through Shadow Devourer to register. Just then, a glint appeared in Aries' eyes, and he actually learned a new skill. Shadow Assault, a skill that launches attacks hidden in the shadows. The first attack will cause massive damage. Aries stood up eagerly upon acquiring a new skill, but due to the pain all over his body, he could only move like a zombie at the moment. He stood up, adjusted his posture, and initiated Shadow Assault. The result was nothing happened. Aries stood foolishly for a few minutes. He was immediately so angry that he stomped his feet. Are you playing with me, system? This is totally ineffective. At this moment, Aries suddenly realized that he might have mistakenly blamed the system. This skill should be a targeted skill and requires a target. He suddenly felt a bit embarrassed. However, he still casually sat down on the sofa and decided to try it out when he had the chance in the future. He then clicked on the individual option on the system dial. The system then popped up as a tribute panel. Upon closer inspection, the description below looked like game dialogue. Aries broke out in a cold sweat as the dialogue was too cringeworthy. However, Aries still swiped on the system panel, and instantly a new row of prompts appeared. Shadow has undergone a transformation and can merge with you. Is this another new skill? This shadow form is the complete version of the cheat code. All 4 of his attributes are very strong. The 4th one is a godly health lock. No wait. HP is only 1% left. Aries immediately cursed the system. Is it trying to trick me? Health points decreased by 99%. Can I still save it back? Might as well die quickly. But despite the complaints, the ability is still pretty good, living up to the cheat code. So Aries got up again and was about to test the effect. He waved his hand and summoned his shadow. Aries and Shadow reached out their hands at the same time. Their index fingers touched. Shadow directly turned into a black glow and swept towards Aries. In an instant, it covered Aries' whole body. It wrapped Aries up tightly. Aries suddenly felt a strong surge of energy spreading out. Handsome badass protagonist finally made his appearance. His path of slaughter officially begins. The Aries in shadow form is just outrageous. His speed is as fast as a black lightning. He can move around the room in such a way that he can even create a wave of air. His strength is also incredibly great. He lifts the bed with one hand effortlessly, feeling easier than drinking water. His defense is even more outrageous. A 200-pound sledgehammer smashes into his face. He didn't do anything. But the mighty Aries was still shaken back to its original form by the downstairs neighbor's roar like a lion. What's going on upstairs? Can you guys tone it down a bit? Aries quickly dispelled the shadow form. He thought it's better to keep a low profile. Who knows, he might need to use this form to save his life in the future. At this moment, Aries saw that the status on the system could be activated. In fact, Aries had never quite understood what this status really meant. He couldn't see the details before. Now that it can be activated, he can see a detailed introduction. He has the authority to activate the corresponding status, but he hasn't truly awakened. Once the status is activated, it means a complete awakening. This status also has a unique attribute. Once activated by someone, others cannot activate the same status again. What worries Aries the most is that line of red text. There is a certain risk involved. The system also specifically noted that risk could also be an opportunity. Aries hesitated. He is willing to become stronger, but he cannot fully trust the system. Who knows how big the risks will be for sure. Although high risk can bring high returns, but just as Aries was hesitating, the system automatically clicked yes. Suddenly, countless black lights gushed out from the system window. Aries was shocked to see this scene. He immediately yelled, "System, what's wrong with you? I haven't made a selection yet. How could you confirm it on your own? Have you lost your mind, system?" Before Aries could finish scolding, the gushing black light turned into ribbon-like objects that completely wrapped Aries up. Then, it started to vibrate mysteriously. I don't know how long passed. A foot stretched out from the huge black sphere. And Aries also walked out from it. Now Aries has undergone a big transformation. He is so handsome now. At this moment, he is awakened as a slayer, no longer erupting with emotion in hunting, but perishing in hunting. All of his attacks will cause damage. Of course, attacks from external artifact type do not count. For example, firearms and ammunition. And as a slayer, the more mysterious he becomes. The more notorious he becomes, the more rewards he can obtain. The third note is the most terrifying. Coming from his pursuit, even the gods cannot escape. This status looks really impressive. As Aries released his form, he watched the shadows merge into his body. Aries couldn't help but sigh. Even if it's a deity, I can still cause harm. Far from being overly modest. Moreover, once shadow form is activated, his Fatal Strike ability will be strengthened and the health points required for Fatal Strike to trigger will be reduced. The Fatal Strike ability is when the target's health points reach a certain threshold, an instant kill zone will appear. And when he attacks the instant kill zone, it becomes a Fatal Strike. He can directly kill the opponent. Aries thought for a moment. Earlier, he had encountered a red light ball when hunting down the ghost exotic species. That should be the instant kill zone, right? His absolute damage, coupled with an instant death Fatal Strike. Aries couldn't help but sigh. Isn't he invincible now? At this moment, Aries suddenly remembered something. He hastily and clumsily started tearing off the bandages on his own body. Then he began to look around carefully. Doesn't this status say there's a risk? Why do I feel like there's nothing wrong? And the wounds on his body have almost healed. Even Lawson's special medicine wouldn't work this fast. He thought about it, and tore off a scab from his waist.